Before we dive into today's story, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us till the very end. And if this story moves you, share your thoughts in the comments and send it to a friend who needs to hear it. Now, let's begin. The wedding invitation arrived nearly 3 months before the ceremony, delivered in a thick cream envelope that felt heavier than it should have. Naomi Carter stood by her small kitchen counter, turning it over in her hands before opening it, already sensing that it carried more than just a date and a venue. Inside was heavy cardstock, elegant gold lettering, and the unmistakable name of her older sister, Veronica Carter, embossed in shimmering script. Naomi ran her fingers over the raised letters, feeling the textured ink beneath her fingertips, and sighed quietly. Veronica had always loved appearances, loved things that looked impressive, even when the people behind them were hurting. Naomi had learned that lesson early in life. Before she could fold the invitation back into the envelope, her phone lit up with Veronica's face on the screen. It was the same professional photo she used everywhere: LinkedIn, company emails, even her contact photo. Perfectly styled hair, confident smile, and eyes that always seemed to be measuring someone. "You got it, right?" Veronica said without saying hello. "Yes," Naomi replied carefully. "I did." "Good. I just wanted to talk about seating," Veronica continued, her tone already tense. "We're doing assigned tables, and I wanted to give you a heads up so there's no awkwardness later." Naomi felt her stomach tighten. "Okay. You'll be at table 14, Veronica said, with some of the younger cousins and, family members who are still figuring things out." "The kids' table," Naomi said flatly. "It's not the kids' table," Veronica snapped. "It's just the head tables are for people who are more established. Executives, business owners, people with visible careers. You know how Michael's family is." Naomi let out a slow breath. "So you're saying I don't qualify?" "I'm saying you work from home, you drive that old car, and nobody really understands what you do," Veronica said. "We're trying to make a good impression. This wedding matters." There it was. Naomi stared at the invitation again and felt something small and painful settle in her chest. "So, I should sit with the failures," she said quietly. "That's not what I said," Veronica protested. "You didn't have to," Naomi replied. The silence that followed was loud enough to hurt. After the call ended, Naomi sat at her small dining table, the invitation resting in front of her like a challenge. Part of her wanted to tear it in half, toss it in the trash, and avoid the whole thing. She was tired of being the invisible sister, tired of being measured by the wrong standards, tired of being treated like a disappointment simply because she didn't live her life loudly. But another part of her, the part that still remembered sharing a bedroom with Veronica as kids, still wanted approval, still wanted hope. She picked up her phone and typed a simple response. "RSVP, yes." In the weeks that followed, Naomi was reminded again and again of where she stood in her family's invisible ranking system. At the engagement party, Veronica introduced her to Michael's relatives with a polite but distant smile. "This is my younger sister, Naomi. She does some consulting work from home." The words sounded harmless, but Naomi could hear what was missing. No excitement, no pride, no curiosity. At the bridal shower, Naomi found herself seated with Veronica's old college friends, while the important guests sat closer to the bride. She watched Veronica laugh with her boss, hug wealthy clients, and soak in attention that felt carefully curated. When Naomi asked about the rehearsal dinner, her mother, Elaine Carter, waved her off. "It's just for the wedding party and immediate family," she said, not meeting Naomi's eyes. "I am immediate family," Naomi replied quietly. "Well, technically yes," Elaine said, irritated, "but you're not in the wedding party. Please don't make this difficult. Just be happy for your sister." Naomi nodded, swallowing her frustration. She was happy for Veronica, truly, but happiness didn't cancel out the sting of being pushed aside. It didn't erase the years of subtle comparisons, the raised eyebrows, the sighs, the unspoken question of why Naomi hadn't become the version of success the family could easily brag about. The wedding day arrived bright and flawless, as if the sky itself had decided to cooperate with Veronica's carefully planned vision. The ceremony was held at a historic estate with sweeping lawns and towering white columns. Naomi arrived early, parking her 15-year-old sedan at the far end of the lot between two luxury SUVs that cost more than her car was worth. She stepped out, smoothed her navy dress, and adjusted the pearl earrings her grandmother had given her years ago. She looked polished, professional, and deliberately simple, a style she had chosen long ago, not out of necessity, but out of comfort and identity. Inside, the ceremony was beautiful. Veronica walked down the aisle in a custom designer gown, glowing with confidence. Michael looked proud and accomplished, the kind of man Naomi's parents had always hoped Veronica would marry. Naomi clapped with everyone else, smiling, even feeling genuinely emotional during the vows. For a moment, she let herself forget the seating chart, the hierarchy, the labels. But reality returned at the reception. Naomi found the chart near the entrance and scanned the room. Tables near the front were reserved for executives, business partners, and high-status family members. She followed the list slowly, her finger trailing down until she reached table 14, tucked behind a decorative divider near the back. Her table mates included her cousin Ethan, still in college, her cousin Maya, recently laid off, and a few distant relatives she barely knew. "So this is where we end up," Maya muttered with a humorless laugh as Naomi sat down. "The island of misfit careers," Ethan joked, trying to lighten the mood. Naomi smiled politely, but inside she felt the familiar ache. This wasn't new. It was just more public than usual. Dinner began, and the band played softly while servers moved through the room with practiced elegance. Naomi noticed that even the wine at their table was different from what was being poured up front. Small details, but telling ones. Conversation drifted from job searches to future plans, and Naomi listened more than she spoke, offering encouragement when she could. When her phone buzzed, she glanced at it discreetly. A message from her company's operations director. Presentation went perfectly. Contract finalized. $22 million deal closed. Naomi's lips curved into a small smile that no one else noticed. She slipped the phone back into her clutch. Tonight wasn't about her. Tonight, she was supposed to play her assigned role. Then came the speeches. Naomi's father, Richard Carter, stood and praised Veronica's ambition, her drive, her impressive career. Elaine followed, talking about determination and success, about how Veronica had always known what she wanted. The words were kind, but the subtext stung. Naomi heard what wasn't being said. She had drifted. She had settled. She had failed to impress. Then Michael's best man, Aaron Blake, took the microphone. He was confident, charismatic, clearly used to commanding attention. He spoke about business, partnerships, growth, and then began showing slides. He praised Veronica's firm for landing a major new client. The room buzzed with approval. Then, without warning, a new logo appeared on the screen. Naomi felt her breath catch. It was her company's logo. Whispers spread. Heads turned. Aaron's tone shifted. "What many of you may not realize," he said, "is that the CEO of this company is actually here tonight." Naomi froze. Aaron clicked to the next slide, and Naomi's professional photo filled the massive screen. Gasps rippled through the ballroom. People leaned forward in their seats. Veronica's face drained of color. "Naomi Carter," Aaron said clearly, pointing toward the back of the room. "Founder and CEO of Apex Meridian Group. Built from the ground up. Multi-billion-dollar valuation. Industry leader in advanced marketing analytics." Every head turned toward table 14. Naomi stood slowly, her heart pounding. "It's true," she said calmly when her brother Lucas called out in disbelief. "All of it." Aaron invited her to the stage, and as she walked forward, Naomi felt years of silence lifting from her shoulders. On stage, she spoke simply, without arrogance, without apology. I never hid who I was, Naomi said into the microphone. I just never made my life a performance for anyone else's approval. She looked directly at Veronica. I wanted to be your sister more than I wanted to be impressive. The room was silent. The truth hung heavy in the air. Naomi handed the microphone back, her voice steady. What happens next is up to all of you. I'm done being small so others can feel big. As she stepped away from the stage, something inside her felt lighter, not because she had proven anything, but because she had finally stopped carrying a story that was never hers to begin with. The ballroom did not return to normal after Naomi stepped away from the stage. Conversations that had once been light and celebratory were now hushed, charged, and filled with sideways glances. Guests whispered behind raised hands. Phones were discreetly pulled out. People searched Naomi's name, confirming what they had just heard, scrolling through articles, interviews, and business profiles. The narrative everyone had carried about her shattered in real time. At the head table, Veronica sat stiffly, her hands clenched in her lap. Michael leaned toward her, whispering urgently, his face tight with confusion and anger. You knew? Michael asked quietly. Veronica shook her head, eyes glossy. I swear I didn't know like this. I knew she did consulting, but I never imagined. You never asked, Michael said, not unkindly but firmly. That's different. At Naomi's old table, Maya stared at her phone wide-eyed. She's been on the cover of Business Weekly. Naomi has spoken at international conferences. She's not just successful, she's elite. Ethan let out a low whistle, and they sat her back here with us. Naomi returned briefly to table 14 to collect her purse. Several relatives tried to speak to her at once. Apologies, awkward congratulations, sudden interest. She smiled politely but kept her distance. For the first time, she wasn't interested in being understood by people who had never tried to understand her before. She was tired, not physically but emotionally. Tired of explaining herself. Tired of shrinking. Tired of carrying other people's comfort on her back. As she turned to leave, her mother hurried toward her, eyes red. Naomi, please. You embarrassed us. Naomi stopped walking and looked at her calmly. No, Mom. I embarrassed your assumptions. There's a difference. Elaine opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. For once, she had no easy response. Outside, the evening air felt cooler, quieter, and infinitely more honest than the ballroom she had just left. Naomi stood near the entrance, breathing deeply, letting the noise fade behind her. For a moment, she simply stood there, grounding herself, reminding herself that she had done nothing wrong, that she had not lied, that she had not cheated anyone. She had only refused to perform a version of success that wasn't hers. Her phone rang. Veronica. Naomi hesitated, then answered. I'm on the terrace, Veronica said, her voice shaking. Can you come talk to me? Please. Naomi considered it, then agreed. She found Veronica alone, her perfect wedding image crumbling in real time. Mascara streaked her cheeks. Her shoulders were hunched, smaller than Naomi had ever seen her. I didn't know, Veronica said quickly. Not like that. I didn't know you were this. This. Naomi repeated softly. This powerful. This accomplished, Veronica said, tears spilling. All these years I thought you were just coasting. I thought I was the one carrying the family success. And you needed me to be less, Naomi said gently, so you could be more. Veronica covered her face. I think so. I didn't even realize I was doing it. I'm so sorry. Naomi studied her sister for a long moment. Sorry is a start, but it's not the finish line. I want to fix this, Veronica whispered. I want to know you, the real you. Then you have to stop competing with me in your head, Naomi said. I was never your rival. I was just your sister. Veronica nodded slowly. I don't know how to undo years of damage. You don't undo it, Naomi replied. You rebuild, brick by brick, with honesty, with effort. They stood in silence, the music drifting faintly from inside. Call me after your honeymoon, Naomi added, if you still want to try. I will, Veronica said immediately. I promise. Naomi left the estate shortly after. This time people noticed. Guests stepped aside. Some looked ashamed. Some looked impressed. Some looked suddenly eager to be kind. Naomi accepted none of it personally. Respect that comes only after status is revealed was not respect she trusted. Her driver, Samuel, opened the door of her SUV. Long night, ma'am. You have no idea, Naomi said with a tired smile as she slid into the back seat. As they drove, her phone filled with messages. From Lucas, I'm sorry. I should have paid more attention to you. Can we talk soon? From Maya, you just changed my entire idea of what success looks like. Thank you. From distant relatives who had never once checked on her suddenly asking about opportunities. One message stood out. From her father. I failed you. I was blind. I want to do better. I'm proud of you. Naomi stared at it for a long time. Then she typed back. I'm proud of me, Dad. That's what changed everything. If you want to rebuild, I'm open. But it has to be real. Almost instantly he replied, I understand. I'll show you. Not just say it. Naomi leaned back, closing her eyes. For the first time, she felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not yet, but possibility. Real possibility. The kind that comes only when truth is finally spoken out loud. Back in her penthouse, Naomi kicked off her heels and stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city she had quietly conquered. This space, this life, this success, none of it had been built for applause. It had been built for purpose, for impact, for freedom. Her phone rang again. Veronica. I told Michael everything, Veronica said softly, about how I treated you, about the seating, about my jealousy. He's disappointed in me, but he also said he wants to support me in doing better. That's good, Naomi replied. I don't deserve your kindness, Veronica said. This isn't kindness, Naomi said calmly. It's boundaries with compassion. Veronica let out a shaky laugh. You always were stronger than me. Naomi shook her head, even though Veronica couldn't see it. Different. Not stronger. Just different. They talked a little longer, not fixing everything, but starting something new. Something honest. When the call ended, Naomi poured herself a glass of wine and sat quietly. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was holding her breath around her own family. She whispered to herself, I don't have to be small to belong. The words felt powerful, final, true. The next morning, headlines and industry messages flooded in. Word had spread about the billionaire's sister at the back table. Naomi ignored most of it. The world had finally noticed what her family had missed. But that wasn't the victory. The real victory was internal. She no longer felt the need to hide, perform, or minimize herself for anyone's comfort. At her office later that week, Naomi stood in the conference room, confident, centered, and fully herself. She led meetings, signed contracts, and made decisions that affected hundreds of employees. But in the quiet moments between work, she thought about something else. She thought about boundaries, about identity, about the freedom that comes from no longer asking for permission to exist fully. Her family would either grow with her or stay behind. That was no longer her burden to manage. Naomi Carter had spent years being underestimated because she let people assume. Now, she understood something deeper. Letting people misunderstand you can protect your peace, but choosing when to be fully seen can change your life. And this time, she chose to be seen, not to impress, not to compete, not to prove anything, but simply because she finally believed, without question, that she was enough exactly as she was. 2 weeks after the wedding, Naomi sat in her favorite corner of a quiet cafe downtown, sunlight streaming through tall windows and warming the wooden table in front of her. She had chosen the place carefully, neutral ground, away from offices, away from family homes, away from emotional territory. She arrived early, ordered tea, and waited. When Veronica finally walked in, she looked different. Not in clothes or makeup, but in posture. Her shoulders were tense, but her eyes were more open, less guarded. "Thank you for meeting me," Veronica said as she sat down, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. "I've been thinking a lot since the wedding. Not just about what you said, but about how I've lived." Naomi nodded. "Thinking is good. What did you realize?" "That I built my identity by comparing myself to you," Veronica admitted. "Even when you weren't competing. Especially when you weren't. It made me feel safe to believe I was ahead." "That kind of safety is fragile," Naomi said gently. "It only works if someone else stays small." Veronica swallowed. "I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be proud of my life without needing yours to look smaller." Naomi studied her sister. "That's the first honest thing you've said to me in years." Veronica gave a sad smile. "Then maybe this is the first real conversation we've ever had." For the first time, Naomi didn't feel like she was talking to a rival. She felt like she was talking to a sister. Later that week, Naomi hosted a small family dinner at her penthouse. Not a celebration, not a performance, just food, conversation, and boundaries. Her parents arrived nervous. Lucas came with quiet support. Even her mother seemed unsure of how to behave without the old hierarchy guiding her. "This place is beautiful," Elaine said softly, looking around. "Thank you," Naomi replied. "It's my home." Not a flex, not an apology, just a fact. Dinner was awkward at first. Old habits don't disappear overnight, but something was different. Richard asked about Naomi's work, real questions, not surface-level curiosity. Elaine listened instead of comparing. Lucas admitted he had always felt pressure to compete too. "I think we were all trained to rank each other," Lucas said quietly. "Like love was something you had to earn by being impressive." Naomi looked around the table. "Love shouldn't be a competition," she said. "If it is, someone always loses." Her father nodded slowly. "We did that to you. We made you feel like you had to prove your worth." "I'm sorry." Naomi didn't rush to forgive. She didn't need to. What mattered was that for the first time they were speaking honestly. Not as performers. Not as titles. Just as people. That night, when everyone left, Naomi cleaned up alone, tired but peaceful. Healing wasn't loud. It was quiet. It was slow. But it was real. Months later, Naomi stood on a stage at an international business summit. Lights bright, audience packed. Her name displayed behind her in massive letters. She spoke about leadership, about identity, about building something meaningful without losing yourself. But what she didn't say out loud was just as important. She had stopped living her life for approval. She had stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. She had stopped explaining herself to people who didn't truly want to understand. Her relationship with Veronica was not perfect, but it was honest. Her parents were learning. Slowly, her brother was trying. That was enough for now. Not perfect, but better. As the applause filled the hall, Naomi smiled, not because of the recognition, not because of the success, but because she finally knew something deep and unshakable. Her worth had never depended on where she sat at a wedding. Her value had never been defined by other people's expectations. She had always been enough. And now, for the first time in her life, she was living like she believed it. Like and subscribe to my channel for more contents like this, and let us know where you are watching from under the comment section.